Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And ahead of Gameweek 35, I'm joined by two of our correspondents from two of my favourite teams in the world. Firstly, let me introduce you to our West Ham United correspondent, Chris Stone. How are you, Chris?
Yep, I'm good, thank you. Yourself,
Good,
James?
man. Yeah, not too bad till I started this. And Adam Pritchard, who bottled it when Arsenal were doing shit a couple of weeks ago, but he's here now. Adam, I hope you're feeling better from COVID. How are you, mate?
I'm doing excellent, thanks, James.
Good man. Chris, I take it all the focus is very much, and we should say we're pre-recording this on Wednesday morning, is all focused on the Europa League Semi Final.
Yeah, I think that's. I think from the Sunday's team selection, that was pretty obvious. I was a little bit surprised how many changes he made, but yeah, I mean, this late in the competition, you've got to. I mean, that's our best route really to European or Europa League or whatever, Champions League, I should say, next year. But getting into Europe really and winning the trophy is the main thing. I'd say more. You kind of forget that actually it does give you Champions League qualification. I think it's the thing of winning the trophy is. I know it sounds daft, but it is a bigger prize in a way. But yeah, definitely that's clearly the focus now.
So would you take actually qualifying for the Champions League a bigger prize in itself than actually winning the trophy? Sure.
No, I wouldn't. No, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying today. I just thought, oh yeah, if we win it, we get to the Champions League, and it's kind of like you almost forget because I think if you're I don't know, like an Arsenal, Man United, those sort of teams that are used to being in those competitions, Chelsea or that sort of thing, they'd see it as they've got to win it because they've got to have Champions League. Where for us, the Champions League is just it's a bonus in a way. Especially with our league position, I don't think we're finished much higher than we are now. But yeah, I mean, I'd be more than happy if we could win it. But it's no mean feat to win it.
Do you think you'll win the competition, or is there the kind of fear that it's West Ham, something has to go wrong, if that makes sense?
I think a little bit of that. I think also there's the fear that I think for most people who may be a very sort of West Ham orientated or very even Premier League orientated, they might not have even sort of really know of these teams and think they're absolute rubbish. I mean, I know potentially we could get Rangers, and you think that'd be my worst nightmare, losing to Rangers in the final.
Why?
Because partly because when I used to play football, all the lot I used to play for Irish, they all support Celtic, so I'm kind of sort of affiliated with that. But also just the fact it's you'd be expected to beat Rangers out of anybody in that competition, expected to beat them, so it'd be a bigger disappointment. If we lost to Leipzig or someone like that, if we got to the final, then they are a good team. They're a good European team. Where Rangers, you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe we've lost to them. And I think since Gerrard's left, they've gone down a little bit. They're not quite at the level they were. So I would be disappointed for a few reasons on that one.
Your favourites for the Frankfurt game, you're not?
Yeah, we are, but I think they've got a couple of dangerous players. I mean, they're just slightly different in Europe than they are in the league. They've got Kostic, I think, or Kosic. He sort of plays on the left, and he's scored a few goals every year. He's a dangerous player. So they do struggle a bit in the league. Funny enough, someone I speak to out in Germany through work, he supports Frankfurt. So I've got a meeting with them next week. So I don't really want to be having to. Well, I think it's on Friday, so I don't really want to lose to them. But he's more pessimistic. He sort of thinks that we will beat Frankfurt because Frankfurt struggle for goals. But in Europe, they've done pretty well on that front. We would be favourites, definitely favourites, but I'm not sure that we carry a favourites sort of weight very well at times.
Are you comfortable with that? Is that uncomfortable?
No. Yes, it is. It's almost like I wouldn't say it's uncharted territory, but it's out of the comfort zone, because when you go into a game expecting to win it, it's happened so many times over the years. But I will think, I'll be going tomorrow. I will enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, but it is a bit more pressure now. I think more so than before.
How do you see them, Adam, in terms of their chances in this?
I think Frankfurt is a trickier tie on the kind of like Chris was saying on the sort of, or than it appears on the face of it. I think they've struggled a little bit recently in the league. but they are nonetheless a really kind of interesting side and quite it sounds really stereotypical when you say, oh, it's going to be a really difficult away trip, but I think their fans will make it an extremely difficult away trip. So I think if they get through, it sounds stupid to say if they get through this tie, I think Frankfurt are the best team left in it. I think they'll be the most difficult test for West Ham. So I think Frankfurt and the kind of underdog doggedness they have is something quite unique when compared to the other two sides. And obviously the kind of opponents they've already overcome gives them kind of enough kudos to make them a match for anyone.
Okay, interesting. Do you think you'll give a shit about Sunday, Chris? Or in fact, let me rephrase that. Do you give a shit about Sunday?
I do in terms of the result, but in reality, I mean, when you go there, you're going to be thinking about the game that's coming up on the following Thursday. It doesn't matter how it happened against Everton. It was, the crowd are going to be in that position, especially if it's a very, we're either it's a fairly close game. I don't see us winning 3 or 4-0. But if unless that happens, maybe a bit different. But it's a tricky game because it's 3 points are quite important. But you've got that close to a final, you've got to have that focus on it. And the players it doesn't matter how much you tell them not to. It's human nature. It happens even in the FA Cup final, isn't it? A game or two before, people were a little bit, wary about getting an injury, all that kind of stuff. So it's a massive game. It's a massive game for the club.
Adam, would you rather play a full strength West Ham or a weakened West Ham?
What kind of a question is that? Obviously, I'd rather play the worst team possible, thanks. I'd like a kind of... I want West Ham to be... I want it to go to extra time.
We can't.
Well, okay.
First leg, mate.
That's a very good point. No, it's just testing you there. I want it kind of a very exhausting sort of 2-2 draw then. So, yeah, I mean, I'll take the weakest West Ham side possible.
All I mean by that is West Ham obviously heavily rotated at Chelsea, and actually the players that took the pitch seemed pretty motivated, actually. There wasn't kind of a let up. I think West Ham gave it their best shot in that particular game. Admittedly, Chelsea were very under par. But actually, if West Ham changed the selection a lot, it's still a tricky away game, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. No, it's still a difficult match. I'm not sort of going into this expecting sort of a 4-0 walkover by any means. I think a lot of that game that West Ham played against Chelsea, like you say, was down to the fact that Chelsea were quite poor and they've got no real motivation in the league. They're kind of coasting through to the FA Cup final, and they had a few sort of absentees that might have made their performance a little bit worse. So no, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they'll be as tired as possible and all minds on the second leg, really.
What are you expecting, Chris? Do you expect the likes of Bowen and Antonio to play against Arsenal or not?
I think a lot depends on the game on Thursday. What sort of result they get. It's difficult to say. I don't really, bearing in mind the team he played against Chelsea, I don't realistically see them starting, because why would he not start them against Chelsea, against Arsenal, unless he thinks that, okay, we can get some points. But what's the point in getting 3 points? You still, Man United can still win 3 games and we can still finish 7th. And then someone picks up an injury or something. So I don't think they will. I think they'll play a part, and someone like Bowen, especially, even for half an hour, could quite easily get a goal. But it's just, I guess, like you say, we did all right against Chelsea, but the issue is going to be Dawson's going to be suspended. So I'm really not sure how they're going to manage that. I mean, I know there's talk of Zuma not being far away, but I don't know how far away he is, and are they really going to risk him in the league?
Yeah, we'll come back onto what we think potential solutions will be at centre back. But do you think, Chris, the United-Chelsea result on Thursday night could have a bearing? If United win, you're 5 points behind them and it looks tough then to finish above them. Whereas obviously if they get beat by Chelsea, a win for you Sunday takes you back above them with 3 to play.
It probably would. Yeah, it probably would have some influence. I mean, if they lost, then he might play a slightly stronger side. But bearing in mind, I think it was 6 changes he made. Rice didn't play, but Rice is the sort of player who probably, 1 game rest is enough. But yeah, I still see even being that, I don't think he'll play Antonio. I think he'll rest at least 3 people for the Arsenal game. Maybe more. Like I say, I think there'll be more rotate. Well, there'll be as much rotation as there was against Chelsea if Man United win, because like you say, then the hopes of getting that spot, that 6th spot, are greatly reduced.
Is that important to you, 6th?
It is in a way, because then you get into the Europa League again. I mean, if we don't win the final or we don't get to the final, like win the final, then if we don't finish 6th, we're in the conference one, which isn't as good as a competition, but it's still another route to maybe the following year. I think the only advantage with that conference one was that might give them a chance to play, especially in some of the games, some youngsters, and get them used to.
He did that in the latter part of the group stage in Europa League anyway, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because you were quite comfortable in it.
Yeah.
Seventh's not guaranteed either, is it? I mean, Wolves are 3 points behind you with a game in hand. Admittedly, you've both got to play City at home, and they've also still got to go to Stamford Bridge and Anfield. So even though they've got an extra fixture, your fixtures certainly look better. But I mean, you've got Arsenal this week as well. There's no guarantee that you qualify for Europe next year, is there?
No, there isn't a guarantee. I mean, I guess it's more Wolves' form. If Wolves suddenly discover form and they win 3 games, then that's going to be very tough for us. I guess it's all of the teams around there really have been fairly inconsistent, haven't they, in some shape or form? I mean, Newcastle's obviously moving up, but it's probably too much for them. But Wolves are only 3 points.
They're way off you, mate. They're 9 points behind, so they're not going to catch you.
I mean, Wolves on paper, Wolves can do it. We're reliant on Wolves' bad form continuing.
Adam, what's changed for Arsenal over the last 2 games? You were obviously meant to join us a couple of weeks ago, couldn't. It looked bad following the defeats at Palace, Brighton. Then you lost at Southampton as well. And I was seeing a lot of Arsenal have blown it. Arsenal finished top 4. They've thrown it away. It's yours again, isn't it?
No, I think I'll maintain what I've said every time I've come on here.
Look at you smiling from ear to ear. You're lying, mate.
No, not at all. It's going to come down to the North London derby. It always, I think, those losses against Palace, Brighton, and Southampton made it look like it wouldn't come down to that because we had kind of ceded the advantage. But I think it now is perfectly poised for that match to be unbearable for both you and I, James, but probably extremely fascinating for the neutral.
It's not necessarily, is it? If you go to Stratford and win on Sunday and we lose at home to Leicester, the gap is then 5 points, and we go to Anfield and you host Leeds and you can finish it.
Yeah, we could. But then again, I mean, equally possible is the reverse of that happening. We lose against West Ham and you easily kind of walk over Leicester. In terms of what's changed, I think Arteta quickly abandoned the idea of trying to strengthen the defence at the risk of weakening the midfield, and decided, look, let's just kind of, if we're going to secure one area, it's more vital we secure the midfield, because the midfield acts as the link between the defence and the attack. And Arsenal's greatest strength is the attack at the moment. When you sort of bear in mind that Tomiyasu only literally just came back against United only for a couple of minutes, and obviously Tierney's out. And I think that's the main change, and that's kind of imbued Arsenal with more kind of you'll score 2, we'll score 3 kind of a mentality. I think at least that's what it feels like from an outside perspective. And then there's just kind of the chaotic nature of those 2 games, which I don't think you could play them 100 times, and I don't think they would end up with the same scoreline as the Chelsea and United games have the past week or so.
Did you deserve to beat Chelsea?
I'd say we probably deserved to win both games, but as much through the fact that our opponents weren't that good as we were better. I thought we were more superior when compared to Chelsea than we were when you compared us to United. I thought the United game was much closer. I think the atmosphere in the Chelsea game might have played quite a big part, because
I think you're right.
The Arsenal away fans sounded like the home team, and what was most kind of notable to me, and I'm not sure if you guys noticed it if you watched it on TV, was when Arsenal scored, it had the noise of a home team celebrating, but when Chelsea scored, it was much more kind of, the fans celebrating was much more muted. So
it's because they were disappointed, because all they live for is to stitch up Tottenham, mate, as you well know.
No, that's true. I
don't know why I didn't see that coming.
the ultimate one in the eye for you guys. But yeah, no, I think it gives me more confidence going into this kind of final stretch that we're able to score goals, most importantly. And even if we kind of struggle to keep them out, it seems like a couple of the sort of unlucky nature of our recent kind of losses that I've certainly felt in some games we've been a bit unlucky. It's kind of flipped on the other side, and we've had a bit of luck in the last two games.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Because you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and it was can't score goals. But actually, you reflect on the Brighton, Palace, and Southampton results. I think you scored one from an XG of about 6. So considering then the change with, as you say, enforced to create a bit more chaos, if you will, we should have seen this coming, shouldn't we?
Yeah, no, I think I'm sort of hesitant to put too much on Nketiah coming into the side. And I'm not necessarily saying he is a better finisher than Lacazette, but he has a better finisher's instinct, if that makes sense. He's much more of a kind of, he goes onto the pitch and his primary aim is to score goals. I don't get the feeling that that's what Lacazette does, whether by instruction or kind of how he is more as a player. And I think having a striker who is a threat in behind defences and who is willing to pick up the ball and run at opponents with pace, who's willing to kind of attack the 6-yard box, who is really, it sounds really kind of old-fashioned, but is really hungry for goals. I think that has kind of given defences another thing to think about, that previously it felt like you had kind of set up against Arsenal in quite a templatey way, and you'd probably get away with it, really.
His contract's up at the end of the season, isn't it? Nketiah,
yeah.
I will say.
Yeah.
Is that the same for Lacazette as well, or?
Yeah, my expectation is they'll probably both leave on a free.
It's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, Arsenal and contracts, it's not exactly not exactly out of the realm of possibility that this is happening.
Would you want Nketiah to play over Lacazette for the rest of the season? If I said only one of them was going to play the remaining games, who would you want to play? That's not what I expected you to say.
On form, I think it's hard to say anyone other than Nketiah. I would be very surprised if he was dropped. That being said, I'm not kind of deluding myself into thinking this is now his level and he's going to continue to be this good forever, because we haven't seen it over a consistent spell. And like I said, I think some of his good performances have been aided by some shaky defending on the part of the opposition. But also, I think he does offer something different. He offers a different threat. And I think he changes up the way teams have to think about defending against us. But I would expect Lacazette to still start. I'd probably expect him to start the Tottenham game, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah, I just think the way that those two, the sort of leads and the quick turnaround. I know Nketiah started against Chelsea and then against United. I just think perhaps the Tottenham game, where we might want to invite you onto us a little bit more than we would at other times, so as not to give you the option to kind of play into your strengths. I think Lacazette might suit that a little bit more.
The turnaround shouldn't be an issue, though, should it? It's Leeds on the Sunday, Tottenham on the Thursday, and then it's Newcastle on the Monday. So actually, your spacing of games is decent. Obviously, Nketiah just played Wednesday night against Chelsea and Saturday lunchtime against United, and stayed on for the whole game.
No, yeah, United, indeed. But I mean, when you think about someone, he's sort of super young, but he's a relatively young kid coming into this, having not played at all. I don't know whether it's a combination of the intensity of what those games will be. Like Leeds isn't going to be sort of a passive game at all, and that North London derby can be very, very intense. And I just fancy maybe Arteta might want the more experienced head in that North London derby. He does quite often favour, or at least he has in the past favoured experience in sort of times of need.
Would it be fair to say that at the moment, the majority of the fans, if you said to them at the moment, Lacazette's going to start the North London derby, would the majority of the fans be in disagreement with that, do you think?
I think the majority of Arsenal fans would be in disagreement with most of what I say, but yeah, I think the more rational amongst Arsenal fans would understand why he might start, even if they might not like it. Like, I'm not saying I want him to start. I'm saying I could understand and wouldn't be surprised if he did.
It doesn't help someone like me who's got him in on a wild card and letting the bench boost in 36. I mean, not that I obviously want him to return against Tottenham. I don't. No. So if he does the business against Leeds as an FPL forward, that'll do, because he would probably be one of my weakest players.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it helps, I'm probably going to bring him in this week, but still of the mind that there is a chance he might miss one of those games in the double game week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you think Tomiyasu's availability will calm this chaos, as you call it, over the last couple of games? Do you expect him to come back into the team on Sunday, for example?
I think so, yeah. I think it obviously makes us a lot better defensively. He's not going to kind of do sort of weird diving, crawling impressions like Cedric will, like he did in the United game. And I think that adds a bit more security to the back four as a whole, because then you haven't got two fullbacks bombing on. You've kind of, Tavares is allowed almost to have that freedom without the kind of worry that there's only two players back there. Now Tomiyasu's kind of got that more experienced, more defensively solid head to kind of sit back when Tavares goes forward. And I think overall it brings a better cohesion to the back line. I think you'll see Ramsdale calm down a little bit as well, because I think he's been a little bit not himself over the past few matches, and I think a lot of that is due to the changes we've seen in the back four overall. I've sort of likened him to a few mates to sort of like Jordan Pickford, the way Pickford is a very energetic goalkeeper in his kind of demeanour and personality. But when he has a very sort of stable and solid back four in front of him, or defence in front of him, as Pickford does with England, he kind of seems a little bit more assured and a little bit more calm. So yeah, I think overall Tomiyasu's return to the side is kind of going to improve not only the right back spot, but each of the defensive positions.
Okay. Do you think, is there a correlation between Nketiah playing and Smith-Rowe playing at the moment, in terms of Lacazette dropping into kind of that 10 position, Smith-Rowe and obviously Odegaard filling that space a little bit more? Are the two linked, do you think?
I think they are linked in as much as they've both recently started games and continue to do well, if that makes sense. Like, they've both played pretty well, so you're not going to take them out of the side. I think people forget that Smith-Rowe's best run in the side came with Lacazette playing. And a lot of what we saw from him was Lacazette dropping deep and Smith-Rowe actually breaking in beyond. Like, you think about, I think maybe his goal, it might have been against Leeds. He certainly scored one against Aston Villa, where Lacazette kind of dropped and he sprinted in beyond the back line. So it's not like Smith-Rowe can't do those kind of runs in behind. I suppose just like Nketiah, the case with Smith-Rowe is I would expect him to miss one of the games in the double game week. And I think Martinelli this weekend might not be a terrible idea if you think West Ham might be a little bit tired, sort of running at the right-hand channel, which could be sort of perhaps defensively weaker than it would usually, especially if Dawson's not going to be available, and if there's no Zuma as well. I think having someone who's more sort of perhaps quick with his feet and sort of likes to run at opponents with the ball. I think that might play into his hands this game.
So, Chris, if Zuma is not back and David Moyes is always very reluctant to give us anything accurate in terms of team news timelines, what's the expectation for West Ham defensively against Arsenal specifically on Sunday?
It's really tough. I mean, right, when you lose 4 centre backs, your options are going to be a bit limited. So, I mean, will he promote someone from the under-23s? They've got a couple of players, probably one that I think it's Elise. Is probably the one who's 21. He's more likely. But then the way we played, if we set up as a 5, that's a lot. Dawson was the central, the central of the centre of the 3. That's a lot of responsibility for an under-23, 21-year-old coming into the team. So that's the biggest problem. I mean, you could put Rice there, but would you again, you have the same problem that Arsenal would have had, with the Saka problem. You effectively lose 2 players then. Although, yeah, I mean,
it's probably the right solution, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a weird one. I know. I don't disagree with you. He's basically fixing one problem and causing another, but it's not like Lanzini can't drop in deeper with Souček, for example.
I mean, the only other thing they could do is they could put someone in there at centre back, and then Rice could be maybe just that bit deeper, and Souček could be the one going forward more in the game. But logically, out of all the options and the fact he not exactly played many the under-23s in the Premier League, you would think it would be Rice. But to be honest with you, I really don't know. There's not a lot of. I guess because of the Europa game, people aren't talking about it as much. But so haven't really heard much, and people haven't really kind of gone into it into a great deal. I haven't really, a couple of podcasts, West Ham ones, haven't really heard too much about it. But it's tough. I really don't know who's going to play there. Like you say, Rice would be the logical choice, just for that one-off game. Funny enough, from what Adam's saying, I think in fact, if it was someone like one of the under-23 player, it'd probably be okay, because he wouldn't be that kind of someone like Dawson who's physical. He'd probably enjoy playing against players that are going to run at them and they're going to try and take them on for pace, because they've got that pace themselves. But it's going to be tough. I mean, I think the result, once to see the team on Sunday, it'll probably give it a better indication of what the result's going to be, in a way.
I've got a bit of a fear that I'm going to see your team on Sunday and go, I ain't watching that. That's the fear I've got at the moment. That adds to the Nketiah, though, doesn't it, Adam? When you look at them centre back, I mean, I completely get that Chris doesn't know which way they're going to go, and I don't think any of us can even kind of pin our thoughts on it with clearness. My guess would be Rice would go back in for that fixture. Personally, how would you see it?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it on the podcast, even James, when you said Rice dropping in and kind of acting as almost a sweeper style centre back. I think that, to me, from an outside point of view, makes most sense. And I think then it's not like you're kind of losing all of your senior players from a back line and throwing in a bunch of kids. At least then you've kind of got a more established figure from the side in that defence.
It's not just about the defending, is it? It's the leadership side of it in terms of organisation and stuff as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be quite harsh for Moyes, and I think it would be a little bit out of character for him to throw a bunch of kids in against an Arsenal team that's just off the back of, regardless of what you think of the performance, off the back of beating Chelsea and Man United.
Yeah, I don't think, Chris, you're going to go as weak against Arsenal as you did against Chelsea. I think the fact that it's a home game as well, I do still think you have something to play for in the league. How do you see Bowen against Tavares if Bowen starts? Because that's certainly an area. Adam's smiling, but he's actual nervous smiling. That's an area where you could definitely hurt Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bowen, to be fair, is very good at exploiting the space behind a fullback, and he's a 90-minute player. So if he against Arsenal is a good team for him to play against, because they will push forward, they will attack, they will get space. It's often harder for Bowen when teams are, aren't giving the space at all in midfield, and he's just not getting, he's just not getting those chances to get in the positions or take on people. So I think Arsenal's style of play will suit West Ham in a way, or Bowen in particular. Presuming he starts, he possibly will start. He's capable of playing, consecutive games. I guess it all depends on if someone gets a knock on Thursday. He's probably not going to risk them on the Sunday. I agree. Probably won't be as many changes as the Chelsea one. There'll still be some, but I think it's probably going to be a case of managing 2 or 3 players. Maybe Antonio probably won't start.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then it's just, I think it'd be slightly reactive. He'll have it in his mind, but I think it'd be reactive based on who comes through the game. Okay, on Thursday night.
I presume, Adam, you'd rather not see Jarrod Bowen in the West Ham team. You were smiling nervously at the thought of Bowen against Tavares. Talk to me a bit more about the Arsenal left back.
He's a bit like a Energizer Bunny version of Andre Santos, really. He's just so...
One for the older listeners.
Yeah, he's just...
Or older than you anyway, Adam.
Well, yeah. In a way, his performance, sort of relating to Andre Santos, if you remember the Chelsea-Arsenal game at Stamford Bridge, the 5-3, where Andre Santos scored a goal where he just somehow managed to keep running up the pitch. Tavares' performance against United reminded me a lot of that, where going forward, he looked quite good. Obviously, he scored the goal, had another chance later on in the game where he absolutely shanked it with his right foot, to be fair. Probably made it out of the stadium. But defensively, he was being torn apart by Elanga, really. Some people think he could have given away a penalty. I wasn't so sure. I think Elanga went down a little bit easily. I think he's got a lot of raw materials, and I'm much more happy we're investing in players with raw materials at a younger age than we are with the likes of Kolasinac, even though Kolasinac might be a little bit more positionally and defensively savvy than Tavares is. And I'm quite heartened to see that he's been given... maybe he doesn't have Arteta's faith back, but he's been given the chances again, because he's been hooked off at sort of early on in games previously on a couple of occasions, and I think that really damages a young player's confidence. And I think it was getting to the point where if Xhaka had started at left back against Chelsea, it's like, was this kid's Arsenal career over?
Yeah, a little bit. I get that. I mean, it's quite strange because he had a spell. We played 6 games in the autumn period. She kept 3 clean sheets in that period. I think he did all right to the extent that, if I remember correctly, there was a few games where Tierney actually stayed on the bench, wasn't there? They didn't rush him back on that occasion. But then we've had incidents since, like the Palace game was hauled at halftime. I'm thinking the Nottingham Forest FA Cup game as well, where he got hauled off. Was that in the first half even?
Yeah, I think it was at halftime.
So Arteta's obviously very indecisive with him. Perhaps it's a case of, I think what you say in terms of Tomiyasu coming back in and this imbalance, which you like to have anyway, towards attacking towards the left-hand side, is almost like getting him as far away from the goal, isn't it? Because you don't want him isolated one-on-one with Bowen and stuff, do you?
No, not at all. And exactly, I think Tomiyasu's return you'll see a better performance from Tavares in that he won't be asked to defend as much. And I think that is not ideal, obviously, for a left back, but it's kind of where the chips have fallen at this point.
And what's Elneny done for the team over the last 2 games?
It's interesting because Elneny is he's a very beige player. Normally, you consider him a kind of quite a safe, more kind of restrained midfielder, 6 out of 10 every game, will do a job. He's a good, I think he's another player whose contract is up in the summer, to be honest. But he's been imbued with a bit more license to push forward. Like his head is up and it's looking forward much more often now than it was previously. Like I remember sort of one of Arteta's best results previously was with Elneny in the side at Old Trafford a season or so
I've
ago.
spoken about that game a few times.
And then he was a little bit more restrained and very good on the ball, but he wasn't kind of, like I say, he didn't seem like he was given this license to kind of look up and drive forward. And it's something I haven't really seen from him before. But what he does is he clearly now has that ability to kind of look up and pass and drive forward a little bit, not nearly to the same extent as Partey. But he adds that kind of sense of calm that I just don't think Lokonga really has with his youthful inexperience.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It's interesting though, because he's basically been on a scrap heap all season, isn't he?
I mean, we were looking to sell him in January, really, to a few Turkish clubs, and it was the same with Nketiah, really. We were trying desperately to get a fee for him.
You've been linked with Gabriel Jesus a lot this week. Do you want me to bring up the Saka joke? Or
go for it.
You know Man City like to buy your best players, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they think they're getting Saka for anything less than 100 million after what they've paid for Grealish, they can...
Man City, I think, are going all out for Haaland this summer and not thinking of anything else. How good has Saka become, mate?
Well, every time I think I've kind of run out of all my kind of limits of admiration for how good he is have been reached, he does something like he sort of takes a crucial penalty against Chelsea, and then obviously the mind immediately goes back to the summer, and I'm kind of absolutely terrified that he's going to miss it, and he just slots it away coolly, and he does the same against Man United. I don't know what's happened, but he's never looked like a player who was phased, but now he is playing with no fear. Like, he doesn't look scared, and
I'd say he's playing with an aura now.
Yeah, there's something about him, and there's every kind of player or special players have a sort of notable characteristic about the way they play. And I've started to notice the way Saka runs. He's got a really distinctive kind of quite a long stride and an open gait, which I think is enabling him to kind of shift his body weight really quickly. So now he's not just a threat cutting on the inside. He can go outside, and I think his skill is quite underrated. I think he's equally as capable of kind of bamboozling defenders and sort of nutmegging them or knocking it past them and running around them and all that kind of stuff. I could talk about him for hours. I think he's a special player.
Do you think longer term this will be his position? Like, is that it now? You play right wing for the rest of his career, or could you see him playing as a 10 in the development of his years?
I think there's no need to limit him really where he could be. I think right wing suits where he is now at this stage of his career, where he's still got that pace and he's still got that kind of, he's developing his kind of lethality in his finishing. And I don't think that's kind of something you want to curb by possibly pushing him inside and making him take up a more creative role. But there certainly was a time when I was thinking he could drop deeper into midfield and become more of a kind of progressive 8 style player. But no, I think the right wing is his home now. And it's why I and so many Arsenal fans were so against moving him to left back or left wing back. It's like, you're taking out the number one attacking threat in your side. It just didn't make any sense.
I would Google lethality, but I wouldn't even know how to spell it, mate, to be totally honest. Chris, how do you see this top 4 battle between the two North London clubs?
It's tough, isn't it? It's both have had their issues with consistency, and that's been the key on their day. I think both are very dangerous going forwards. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say Spurs are good defensively, but they seem a little bit more resolute. I think with the manager, he's he's good in that big game mentality. But then Arsenal put out, they lose against 3 teams you'd expect them to beat, and they go and beat Chelsea and Man U, and not just kind of get over the line. They beat them quite convincingly. I'd fancy Tottenham on it, just because I think some of their players, like Kane and so on, they played in these derbies before. For Kane especially, he knows what it means. They'd be well up for it. CotC will be well up for it. Not that Arsenal won't, but think they've got a slight edge in the game, but I think if Arsenal keep their consistency, then they've got to be favourites again for the top four. It's all about the consistency. I was surprised that Arsenal lost those 3 games that they did. One and then become 2 and then 3, and that was a shock. But then they turned it round. So they do look dangerous, Arsenal.
How many points would you expect to get from the final 5, Adam? So you got West Ham away, Leeds at home, Tottenham away, Newcastle away, Everton at home.
I think we drop points. I think we could lose the North London derby, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I think we could draw. Because it's away at Newcastle, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a Monday night in 37, yeah.
I think that's a difficult tie. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we draw that game. So it's kind of those 2 matches that I've got my eye on. To be honest, if you offered me a draw in the North London derby now, I'd
of course you're ahead, and I think that as the tighter it gets, and obviously Tottenham have got that fixture at Liverpool as well. Certainly, favouritism is absolutely with you. Like I said, we could get to the North London derby, mate, and in theory, you could be 8 points clear, mate. I mean, it's done. It's irrelevant then at that stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then equally, you could get beat on Sunday. We win on Sunday, and then if you slip up against Leeds, maybe we even go ahead. Exactly,
and I think that's why I've always kind of thought it would come down to the game between us, because both sides are so hard to predict outside of when they're actually playing each other. It's like, right, it could just come down to whoever wins that, and then there's a few games left after that, and the side that wins that or kind of comes out best takes that momentum and pushes on to the end of the season. It's just about making sure for both sides, really, or kind of whichever side is behind in the table, that they're not out of touching distance at that point. And
I mean, to be honest, like if you offer me to go into the North London derby and we're 3 points behind, if we've got to win, then we've obviously got the small favouritism of the goal difference at the moment. If we can win that, go level with you, and then the final 2 games, then it's obviously back in our hands. So, yeah, we want to get to that game on the Wednesday and not be more than, or the Thursday, sorry, in Gameweek 36, and not be more than 3 points behind. But then it would be so typical then for Arsenal to draw at White Hart Lane, then lose at Newcastle on the Monday, wouldn't it? and then throw it back open.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing that has, even though I've long kind of thought that Arsenal might be the better team than Tottenham, I think, like I've said to you before, James, Spurs have the clutch players. It's Son, it's Kane, and to a lesser extent Kulusevski. They can just pull it out in any game. Like you could be second best by an absolute mile against Liverpool, and Son and Kane could come up in the 90th minute. You score a goal, you take 3 points away, and everyone will be surprised.
If we win at Liverpool, it'll be more 3-2 than 1-0, to be honest.
Well, no, yeah, that's true. Everyone will be surprised if you won there. But then again, you could sort of look at previous games you've had this season and say, well, yeah, I mean, they've sort of sucker punched Man City to an extent as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Chris, from an FPL perspective, can we have any consideration for West Ham players with what you've got left? Arsenal at home, Norwich away, City at home, Brighton away.
Ordinarily, yes, but I don't think you predicting who's going to play is going to come down to, obviously we've got these two games. I haven't got anyone in. I can't really see why you would put anyone in. There's too many other factors that would enable other players from other clubs to go in there. And you've got players from big clubs playing double game weeks and things like that. There's just no room for anyone.
I still see Antonio knocking about in teams. Like he's been there all year, and people just keep saying, I've had other fires, I can't move him on and stuff. I mean, if you have him, do you move now or do you just leave it?
I mean, there's not much advantage. I guess the thing is there's not exactly a host of forwards that you could put in. But then you think the price he's at, even if you can either bring in, I don't know, Pukki,
Nketiah, drop to Nketiah,
Nketiah.
Right?
So you can free up funds, or if you want to, you've got Watkins, you've got Richarlison at the same sort of price. Where they've got double games. If you want to go for someone who's gonna, if teams that have got something to play for or fight for, but he's not the goal threat he was at the start of the season. They're just not playing him in the same way. He wants a goal, but he's not he's not having like 3 or 4 shots each game and stuff like that. And I think the fact he's playing a lot of the games, he's almost managing. He's not as explosive as maybe what he was at the start. He's not going all out 100% every single game, but then that's meaning that he's playing all the games, and he's important. He's important to West Ham. In his overall play, he causes a lot of problems. You saw it against Chelsea. He just does. He occupies the defenders. He enables space and room for players like Bowen to run into, and often he will kind of switch out to the left. Bowen will come inside and be more central, which has been quite a feature. And that's helped. That's definitely helped Bowen. But as an FPL asset, Antonio's not really viable. There's nothing.
He's got 2 goals since you beat my team in Gameweek 9.
Yeah,
he started nearly every game. It's not every game, but nearly every game since then. That's incredible.
I mean, it's crazy, really. I mean, I don't sort of look at him and think, oh, it's not as if we've got anyone else to play there. But
and he's doing a great job for the team. He still does. He's very unselfish in his work. No one's saying drop him and stuff. I just think a lot of us are stunned that with Antonio, that he's played that volume of games, you managed to keep him fit and he's not been returning. I think it's just a shock.
I think there's an element of he's been a bit unlucky, and I think where it's gone on longer, early on he probably would have just taken a chance, where now it's probably that age-old thing. You take that touch, you want to be 100% certain you get a clean connection, but then that's also giving time for players to to get in and get a block in and stuff like that. So I don't think he's getting as much opportunity.
Ben Johnson can sit solidly on the bench, couldn't he? Is he arguably still the best kind of cheapest one down there at the moment, 3.9? Yeah,
because I mean, I guess he's kind of what
you
I
just
said
leave
earlier.
it on the bench. I mean, if you're bench boosting, you don't go for a player like that. But if you're not, he's fine, isn't he? If you're wildcarding now and not bench boosting, you can have a player like him, can't you?
His advantage is his versatility, so he can play anywhere against that back line. So he's got as much chance, probably more chance than anyone, of actually playing the games.
Okay. Adam, if you were free hitting in 36, double game week, Leeds, Tottenham, and I said you got to have treble Arsenal, which 3 are you going with? And by the way, we should probably say we don't actually know that Saka's fit yet, do we? But
pretty sure he's fit. So I'd go with Saka. Probably for safety of starts, I'd go Ødegaard and then Nketiah, because
free attacking, Adam. You messaged me 2 weeks ago and you said you couldn't hit a barn door. Now you want to go free attacking players.
But do you want any part of a defence that has Nuno Tavares in it? Really? It's not to kind of call him out, but he's doesn't exactly scream clean sheets, and we haven't been keeping any. So
what Arsenal players do you have at the moment?
Saka, and this week, assuming sort of his injury is okay, which I'm pretty sure it is, I will be bringing in Nketiah as well, and probably benching Martinelli.
Oh, so you will have free attacking?
Yeah, but going into that double game week, I will sell Martinelli.
Okay, so you don't think he's likely to get his place back to the extent that he would start twice, unless I guess something happens to Smith-Rowe.
Yeah, I think there are, if you're bench boosting, I wouldn't rely on him for 2 starts. And I think a lot of people who are bench boosting want to know that that player is going to play both games. And I couldn't sort of guarantee that with them.
If you were buying one defensively, which I get the impression you're a bit nervous about, is Tavares arguably the one?
Yeah, probably. Probably somehow, yeah.
4.3. I mean, if you were wildcarding now, would you consider him? To the end of the season?
Yes, but a hesitant yes, in that I don't think it will happen, but there could be a chance that Cedric might be asked to play left back in a game.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that will happen, but I would rather go for Ben White, just so you know, right, as a kind of steady Eddie that is going to play there. And also you don't have as much of a fear that he's going to kind of give away a penalty and get sent off.
He's dull as dishwater though, isn't it? With White, there's not a single attacking return this season.
I mean, it's like complete sort of chalk and cheese situation with them as kind of styles of, it's certainly from an FPL perspective, styles of players. But yeah, no, I'd rather go for the safety of Ben White than the kind of heart in mouth chaos of Tavares.
And Ramsdale?
There are better keepers, really. I think you're probably more likely to look at Schmeichel, probably.
But what if you want to, like me? Like Ramsdale's not out the running for me to go with Schmeichel.
Yeah, but you said something crazy like you want Jordan Pickford, don't you?
Possibly, yeah. So
Yeah.
exactly. So is it that crazy to go with Ramsdale? Ramsdale's under consideration for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I suppose it depends on your situation. Would you fancy Everton's double more than Arsenal's double in terms of keeping, like, I wouldn't expect us to keep a clean sheet certainly not in the North London derby. I suppose Leeds probably more of a chance there. But
So the North London derby could be anything between 0-0 and 4-4, and you and I both know that.
that's true. That's very true.
Okay, interesting. Saka, as long as he's fit, will definitely be in on my wild card. The intention at the moment, Adams, to keep Nketiah. I'd bought him prior to the United game. Ramsdale, I think, is I want a bench boost, right? So I want 2 keepers for that double. So I'm not going to rule him out. I think the likes of Tavares now, it's too risky. I think you've put me off the possible idea of Smith-Rowe. I think you're right. Would be Odegaard over Smith-Rowe. Chris, just before we let you go, what Arsenal have you got?
I've got Saka. Well, I've got Saka and White, but White's kind of just been on the bench lately, so I'm not too fussed about if I bought someone stronger in. Looking at possibly Nketiah, but the forwards haven't really kind of excited me really FPL wise in general. But Saka's been there for a while. He's been solid. So anxiously waiting to make sure that he does play in terms of FPL.
You don't want him to play, mate. I don't want him to play. I'll take the 0 pointer, thanks. Do you think he could be considered for captaincy this week, Adam Saka?
I was about to say he is if I'm sort of brave enough to go away from Salah, just because his ownership will be ridiculous, I think I'd probably go with Saka. Yeah.
Big call. It's a tough game, isn't it? Whatever team they pick.
It's a tough game, but I think he's just in that vein of form where he's just on it, really. It's kind of that unquantifiable aura that you talked about that he has at the moment, where I just kind of feel very, very confident that he's going to play well every game he goes into.
No,
I was going to say, I think if he plays Masuaku again and Saka's up against Masuaku, I know he's not playing in a 4 necessarily. If I knew that, I'd definitely be captaining Saka. He would get
still got to come inside Crespo as well, though, isn't
he? He has. But
and interestingly, when you play a back 3 as well, you also have a bias towards left side. So actually, he might get drawn a lot deeper than what he normally does. Actually,
yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky with him. I think he's got confidence, Saka, and he's in form, isn't he? And he's also going to be on penalties, so that's a factor as well. I think. I think obviously it's that game against West Ham. A lot depends on what team they put out on Sunday, and they're gonna rest. So, but it won't. I think if Arsenal take their chances, it could be a lot of goals. But again, West Ham will be difficult to beat. Whoever they put out, they'll put in a shift, so they won't make it easy.
Go on then, Chris. Correct score prediction.
I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal, but it could be if Arsenal take their chances, then it could be worse.
Adam,
I think 2-1's probably a pretty good shout.
Yeah, full house actually. I think 2-1. But you're a difficult team to play against, Chris. Even if you weaken the team, I wouldn't be surprised if you get something out of the game. I think that's clear. None of us expect Arsenal to go to yours and win 4-0, even if you rotate the whole team. I don't think, because Moyes just won't allow you to play that way. I think we all know when we used to play the old Everton team, it was just never an easy game. And it feels like that playing you now, actually. Although probably arguably one of your worst performances of the season was the reverse fixture at the Emirates, actually. Arsenal won comfortably that night. Where do you think you finished, Chris?
Probably where we are, 7th.
And do you think you win the Europa?
I say hope win it, but I don't want to. I couldn't really say. I know it's just the West Hamness in me comes out.
I wish you luck in Seville if you do the business, mate.
Cheers.
And Adam, where do you think you finish?
5th.
Why are you bottling it?
I've said it every time, because I think it will come down to the North London derby, and I think of the two sides, I think you are more likely to win that game than not.
Basically, we're both such bottle jobs, aren't we? That actually United can still finish 4th, couldn't they?
Well, I know that's how kind of we should be embarrassed as fans of our clubs that is the case.
Although it's not though, is it? It is between the two of us. No one else is involved now.
No, yeah, I think especially if United don't get a positive result against Chelsea.
Would you even fancy United, even if they did, would you fancy them to win their last 3 games? I don't think you'd have any faith in that, would you?
No.
You still got to go to Brighton and Palace.
No, that's true. Yeah, no.
No, it won't be United. It will be one of the two of us, mate. Why have you still got doubts, considering what you watched the last 2 games?
Because of what I've watched the 3 games before.
But have you watched Tottenham's last 2 games?
Yeah, but
you're going to say you watched the 3 before that. All right, brilliant. Thanks. I think that the reality is this could flip on its head again, but Arsenal also have the opportunity before that derby comes around to finish it off. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, it looked like Tottenham had the opportunity to finish it off. I think you're right. There will still be something in that North London derby that's going to be pivotal, unless Leicester win at Tottenham on Sunday and you win on Sunday. I think if those 2 results happen, it's done, mate. It's finished.
Do you think
you can put it to bed after? Yeah, if Leicester win at Tottenham and you win at West Ham, it's finished, mate.
Do you think, James, it's Tottenham need to win it more? Need to be in the top 4 more than Arsenal, maybe, in terms of the manager and all that kind of stuff to do with.
No, to be honest, I think we could finish 4th, and he might still walk out if he wants to. My instinct is that PSG don't particularly want him anyway. To be totally honest, I think they're more likely to go for Zidane. Are they that focused on Champions League? I mean, Conte has shown his European record's actually not great. So do they just sacrifice the French league to go all out for a cup competition? They could do, but it doesn't seem right. I mean, is Conte going to put up with Neymar and Messi off the ball and stuff? I don't think he is. No. And Mbappe's probably going to leave. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's offered his services, but I'm not actually certain that PSG will go down that route. If PSG want him, I'm sure he'll go there whether we finish 4th or not, mate. I think you take that job with a chance of winning the Champions League. Is it more important for Tottenham than Arsenal? No, I don't think Adam would necessarily agree with that. I think it's equally as important for both clubs, isn't it?
No, I think for where you are if you look at Tottenham's squad, I think it is more important that those players get in the Champions League because of the ages that they are. I think even though Arsenal have a lot of young players who could be attracted to Champions League clubs and who would rightly think they should be playing Champions League football, it wasn't our expectation going into the season. Going into the season, it was getting back into the Europa League is an absolute must.
It wasn't ours either, in fairness, mate.
No, that's true. But then I think that was before your January and before you kind of got Conte as well. I think that kind of...
I mean, we were finished after we lost to Southampton and Wolves at home in February, mate. So we've always been chasing, really, until the very recent period.
That's true. But I do think there is something about hiring a manager like Conte that says you're not settling for anything other than the best.
No, that's fair.
And I think the signings that you made in January kind of back that up, in my opinion, anyway.
It'll go to the wire, mate. I think what I would say in terms of Arsenal is, and I do agree with your point to a certain extent, because I think you can see the upward trajectory of where it's going. I think Arsenal improving doesn't mean that if Arsenal finish 5th this year, that they'll definitely finish 4th next year. But I think, to be honest, if the fans can't see that it's moving in the right direction, then I don't get it. To be totally honest, I think
don't
Arsenal
rely
moving
on
in
Arsenal
the right
fans for anything.
Well, that's a fine way to end the podcast, mate. Thank you very much, Chris. Where can everyone follow you on the Bird app?
FPL_Sky Addict.
Good man. Yourself, Adam?
At 352.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Chris. Better luck than him on Sunday, please, mate. Because I'm not bothered about your lot, mate. I want you to win. And I wish you luck in that Europa semi as well, mate. I just don't want you to win that either, really, just because it's massive and all that.
Oh, no, yeah, you just never hear the last of it, would you?
I'll just mute every West Ham fan I know other than you, mate. Next week's Clash of Correspondents ahead of the double game week 36 will be Leicester versus Everton with Aaron Lagor and Sean Norton. I'll be back on YouTube, my Ask James stream, probably 3 p.m. UK time tomorrow. Other than that, thanks again to Chris and to Adam. Cue music, please, man child.